His actions are not vengeance, it's punishment. Let's get into it. Welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing well out there. And today we're going to talk about a little vengeance. I mean, punishment. But before we get into it, like, comment, subscribe, join me here. I would appreciate that. Click on a little notification bell. That way, every time I upload a video, you'll be notified and you can come on back and see just what in the hell I got going on over here. Today, we're going to talk about The Punisher. No, not the 1989 Dolph Lundgren Punisher, although I do have that on DVD. I'm talking about the 2004 Punisher. This movie came out April 16th of 2004. I saw this one opening weekend in the theaters with my wife, well, my girlfriend, but who was going to become my wife. It's rated R. It's 2 hours and 4 minutes long. Had a budget of $30 to $33 million, and upon release, it only made $33.8 in America and $54.7 worldwide. This started off as an artisan entertainment movie. This was greenlit by them, budgeted by them. It started shooting under them. Lionsgate took them over, and then Lionsgate ended up releasing this film. This film was written and directed by Jonathan Hensleigh. This was his directorial debut. He had been a writer in Hollywood for a long time. He had writing credits on The Saint, Die Hard with a Vengeance, and many other projects. And this is his first directorial debut. Thomas Jane plays Frank Castle in this film. John Travolta plays Harold Saint, our main bad guy. Will Patton plays Howard Saint's enforcer, Quentin Glass. We have Roy Schreider in here as Frank Castle Sr. And we also got Rebecca Romaine as Joan. She lives in this apartment building that Frank goes to live in when he comes back from the dead. Ben Foster is in this movie as one of the apartment building tenants as well in an early role. And Kevin Nash plays a Russian enforcer that's in a pretty badass fight that we'll get to as we go through this review. Now, like I said, in '89, they released a Punisher, a low-budget Punisher affair with Dolph Lundgren and Louis Gossett Jr. I've seen that movie. I own it on DVD. It's okay. You can see the intent was there to make a pretty badass action film. Unfortunately, they didn't have the money to realize the vision. Now, going into this project, Jonathan Hensleigh thought he was going to have $64 million to make this film. Unfortunately, his budget got slashed about in half before production, down to about $33 million. So he had to scale back on a lot of the action sequences they had in mind for this film, especially there was going to be an opening scene in a war zone in the Middle East with Frank Castle showing his military service. They had to slash that and many other action scenes to fit within what budget they had. So this is a much more scaled back version of what was originally intended. And if you've seen the Punisher series with John Bernthal, which I really enjoyed, or the Punisher Warzone movie, basically Howard Saint's taking revenge on Frank Castle because his son gets killed in an earlier scene in his arms deal that Frank was involved with as an undercover FBI agent. So he goes to Puerto Rico with his father, or with his wife and his son, to his father and mother's house for a big family reunion. Howard Saint sends his goons and kills everybody but Frank. Frank survives barely and comes back to Tampa Bay, not New York, where it truly took place, to take revenge. And that is the plot of The Punisher. What to like about this film? I really like Thomas Jane as The Punisher. I think he's really, really good here. I actually think most of the cast is good here. It's always nice to see Roy Schreider in anything, and he's good here in his small role as Frank Castle's father. Rebecca Romaine's fine here. Ben Foster's fine. They're kind of these kooky neighbors in this apartment building, although Rebecca Romaine's character is definitely the most normal one out of the three. John Travolta is an actor that I like in some films, and when he does go over the top, like in Face Off or Broken Arrow, I love his performances. I love him in Pulp Fiction. I think John Travolta's given us some really good performances over the years, but also he's given us some really shitty performances over the years. This one's about in the middle. There's points in this film where I absolutely hate his performance, and there's points in this film where I think when he goes more unhinged towards the end, I definitely enjoy his performance a little bit more. But he's almost sleepwalking through the first 3/4 of this film. I don't know what it is. I'm not a big fan of his performance in this film until like the last 10, 15 minutes of the film. Other than that, he's just okay here at best. The location switch, no, I don't never read the comic book. I know a lot of people hated it. They took this out of New York and put it in Tampa Bay. The location's fine. They went to Tampa Bay to save some money because they didn't have a whole lot of money to make this film. Because originally the concept was to make a big R-rated action blockbuster film, and again, on $30 million even back then, it was kind of hard to do. Now, all the action here, for the most part, is handled pretty well, and it's practical. But you could tell that the director wanted to shoot more action because there's some really dead spots here that could have used in their action sequence, unfortunately. There's some hand-to-hand combat here, a lot of shootouts, explosions. It's all handled pretty well, and it's mostly practical, except for the end, where there's a little bit of CGI augmenting some of the explosions at the end, in the finale at this car lot across the street from Howard Saint's club. But overall, I've always liked this film, and the standout sequence of this film, besides the raid on Frank Castle's father's house, I think that's pretty well done, is the fight scene between Kevin Nash and the Punisher. Howard Saint knows where the Punisher is, and he sends this Russian enforcer over, and it's Kevin Nash. And there's a pretty damn good knock it down, drag out fight that takes place in his apartment, and it's well shot, it's well staged, it's nasty, it's violent, and it's really well done. And I'd say it's probably the siege at the father's house and that are the two standout sequences of the movie. I like the end when he goes after Howard Saint and his goons in the club, but it feels truncated. Like there was more to it that they probably couldn't afford to shoot by that point. So it feels almost like it's missing pieces to that, but it's still a fine enough action scene. It just feels like there should have been more to it than what we actually got on screen. Overall, I've always enjoyed this film. Some of the plot doesn't make a lot of sense, and if they had to rush around to slash things out of the script and rewrite it, you could see how we got what we got. But I've always enjoyed this film as a solid R-rated action film. I like Thomas Jane as the Punisher. I know in the comics and that he's bigger, and I know that's why Ray Stevenson in Punisher Warzone got a lot of credit, because he is a bigger, bulkier dude, and Thomas Jane isn't. Although Thomas Jane did train with Navy SEALs and put on 20 pounds of muscle for the role. And you could tell he did the work to get in shape for the film. But yeah, he's a little bit smaller, and especially when Kevin Nash comes in. Now, I know the size is supposed to matter, or be shown that Kevin Nash is so much bigger than Frank, but he's a lot bigger than Frank. But Microchip, who was in the series with John Bernthal, was originally supposed to be in the movie, and Jonathan Hensley cut that character. He didn't think he worked with the story they were trying to tell, and that might have been budget constraints as well, who knows, because again, they had a lot of behind the scenes problems on this film as well, trying to get it to the screen. Other than that, I like this film. I think it's a solid R-rated action film. I picked up the Steelbook from Best Buy, the 4K edition. The transfer is pretty damn good. All the special features are pretty much all the old special features, but the transfer is pretty well done, and it has Dolby Atmos surround track on it. And I still enjoy this film. I think there's some issues there, obviously, but I think it's a solid R-rated Punisher film. So I would give The Punisher 2004 an 8 out of 10. I think it's a fun, hardcore R-rated action film. It's not the greatest thing I've ever seen, but I've always enjoyed this film. So yeah, 8 out of 10 for The Punisher. What are your thoughts on this film? Leave a comment down below, let me know. Hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, share this video, would appreciate that. I'll be back soon with a review for Raw Deal and Red Heat from Arnold Schwarzenegger, but until then, bye.